Hey there, John with Crow's Nest Craft, and as you know, I really like making budget D&D miniatures. So I went to this place called Ollie's, which is a discount store, and I got a few of these Hobbit Hero-Clix minis. These are surprise bags. They were 99 cents a piece, so well worth it for me because I got Thorin, which is any sort of melee class dwarf that you can imagine. It could be anything from a ranger to a rogue to a fighter. Probably not like barbarian or monk or anything like that, but most of the things you'd be playing as a dwarf, you could use this guy. And I also got this Gandalf, which is just the run-of-the-mill wizard, which can be used in most campaigns. So these were perfect to transfer to D&D or any fantasy-based TTRPG. So what I'm going to do is take off the Hero-Clix base and give it a nice new base and maybe refresh the paint job a little bit. So let's get started. First things first, let's get rid of these ugly bases. I'm gonna start with Gandalf. I'm just gonna kind of pry, and as you can see, it's already starting to lift off. As you can see, I'm having a little bit of a harder time with Thorin, but I am getting it off slowly but surely with my box cutter and prying it off. Now I'm finishing it off with the box cutter, and after this I'm going to be cutting off the secondary bases that are on them. So that way I can just put them right onto the new bases afterwards. Now it's time to make a base. So I'm going to be making the base out of an oven-baked polymer clay. It's really durable and easy to work with. So I'm going to start by working it in my fingers, getting it a little softer, and then I'm going to press them out into circles on this parchment paper so I can bake it right on the parchment paper. Next, it's time to put a little bit of texture down. So I'm going to use these texture rollers that one of my friends printed off a Thingiverse for me. I'm going to use this stone texture, and then after that, I'm going to hit it with the cracked texture to look like cracked stone. Now that I'm done texturing it, I'm going to press the miniatures on so I have the feet prints that I can just glue them into once it's all dry. Alright, now I got them baked, all I gotta do is glue the miniatures onto the bases. So I'm going to use a gel super glue. I find that it holds a little bit better than the regular super glue and it's easier to work with. Now that I've made the bases, I'm going to paint the bases. So I'm going to do a slate blue. I love blue stone color, so I'm going to hit it with that. I'm not going to use a primer, I'm just going to hit it with the paint and hope for the best. So I'm not gonna do a whole repaint, I'm just gonna wash it and do some highlights after I hit it with a wash. So I'm gonna hit everything with the black wash at first, let it dry, and then move on to the more detailed spots. This is a homemade black wash. The recipe is basically just water, a dab of dish soap, and as much black paint as you really need to make it as dark as you want. Now that that's dry, I'm gonna start by hitting Thorin with another layer of a flesh tone on his face because there was a few spots where it was messed up a little bit. And I'm also gonna hit his hand because, again, it was a little messed up. So next, I'm actually gonna change the color of Thorin's hair. I'm not a huge fan of the black. I actually prefer dwarfs to have like red hair, so I'm gonna swap it. Now moving over to Gandalf, I'm gonna start by doing some highlights on his beard and his hair with a dead white, I believe the color is called. Basically just a bright white. And I'm gonna do some highlights on the strands of hair in his beard and hair. As you'll see later on in the video, I am just gonna cover this up because I don't like the way that the beard comes out at first. So you can kind of ignore this part, but I still left it in. Now I'm going to start the highlighting process on the gray robes. I'm using this ash colored paint and I'm going over Gandalf's robes. I'm doing a dry brushing to start and then I'll go over it with a thinner brush to do the accents. Here I am doing a little bit more detail with a finer brush just to get the curves of the robe and where light would be hitting it a bit more. Now I'm just going to dry brush the base with a white and this will give it some nice highlights, and I'm not going to go too far into the highlighting process with the base. I'm really just going to stop with the white dry brushing. Now here I'm just touching up Thorin's beard a little bit and his face before I move on. Back to Gandalf, I'm going to take that ash gray that I used for the highlights and I'm going to make it a little bit lighter by adding a little bit of white. So that way I can put it in spots that I think need it, like the tip of the hat, the brim of the hat, some of the tops of the arms, and the folds. Now I'm gonna hit Thorin's hair with a wash. I'm going to use a sepia shade from Vallejo, and this should work really well with the orange color of the hair and kind of give it a little bit of a grimy look and give it a little bit more depth. Now I'm actually going to mix the Caucasian color skin tone with this orange to make a decent highlight for the orange hair. And I'm going to use a fine brush and just go over the strands of hair to make them pop a little bit more. I am going to start by just doing a very light dry brushing, and then I'll move on to a fine brush and get the individual hairs. Here's where I decide I don't really like Gandalf's beard and hair. So I'm actually going to use this Glacier Blue to base his beard, and then I'm going to hit it with a few other things to make it pop, and just kind of experiment a little bit with a blue base versus just white. So now I mixed up a blue wash with a black wash just to make a nice dark color for the shading, and then I'm gonna go over it with some highlighting with a brilliant white. Like, I think I'm gonna use the dead white color again from Vallejo. Hitting it with some final touches here and there. Voila! I am very happy with the way these guys came out. They aren't the best minis, but these will absolutely get the job done for a table-ready miniature. I didn't really even have to paint these guys that much. I just used the pre-paint that was on them, and I hit them with some detail, and they look pretty good. Out of all the Hero-Clix, these probably transfer the best to D&D and other fantasy TTRPGs. The Marvel ones aren't too bad because there are some that fit really well, like Gamora makes a really good half-orc, but these definitely transfer right over and they look pretty darn good. I honestly didn't even know this line existed until someone told me about it a while back. So, I finished up my Hobbit miniatures that I was working on. I'm very happy with them. They are WizKids models, they're the Hero-Clix. They're definitely not as good as the Nolzur's minis that are also from WizKids. The plastic isn't as good, and the sculpts are just, you know, again, not as good. But these are great for a table-ready mini. As you saw, all I really did was use the pre-existing paint as a base coat, made it look a little bit prettier, and I swapped out the base. That's a pretty easy modification to make decent table-ready minis. I really hope you enjoyed watching me make these. Thank you so much for watching. You can check out my TikTok and my Instagram. It's linked in my profile. And I'll see you next time.